What's happening, guys? It's your buddy Grizz, and I'm back again today with another Overwatch character guide. Today's video is going to focus on possibly one of the more underrated heroes, Symmetra, as suggested on the last guide video for Widowmaker by the legend himself, Tim Tam Tomahawk. Real quick before we get started, if you guys have any suggestions for heroes you'd like me to do a guide on, let me know down in the comments section of this video, and I'll gladly consider it. I've already picked the next hero out, however, but leave your suggestions anyway for which hero you want to see a guide on, and I'll definitely consider it. Alright, so let's get right into it here. Symmetra's backstory isn't all that interesting. She was born in India and eventually helped some guy named Sanjay destroy some company named Colado and rebuild Rio de Janeiro with some sort of crazy light bending technology. Yeah, it's confusing. Anyway, it sounds to me like she's a bad guy, but I can't quite tell. Basically, she's got some sort of light bending technology, and she's an architect who excelled at using that technology, from what I can tell by the wiki. Symmetra is mainly seen as a defensive hero, but she's found in the support hero section for some reason. This is also kind of confusing because while she is in the support hero group, she doesn't actually heal teammates. Well, that's not entirely accurate, I guess. She does provide teammates with additional health in the form of shields, but she can't actually heal a teammate who's taken damage. It seems like she should have been in the defensive category since her abilities include providing shields to teammates, setting up turrets that damage and slow enemies, and building a teleporter that gets teammates back into the fight in a hurry. But for some reason, Blizzard has seen fit to put her in the support category, so who am I to argue with TPTB, right? So let's get right into the statistics here. We'll start with Symmetra's primary weapon, the Photon Projector. So the Photon Projector has two different firing modes and is actually one of the more devastating weapons in the game if used properly. The primary fire mode of the Photon Projector creates a beam of energy that tethers to the first enemy in range of that beam. The trick to using this firing mode is to attempt to keep the beam tethered to your enemy as long as possible, as the beam will deal increasing damage the longer it is connected to your enemy. The beam will fall off if your enemy is able to get outside of your field of view, however, so the technique here is to get up close and to keep your enemy in your field of view for as long as possible. Otherwise, your beam falls off and you'll lose some of that damage boost. It does fall off very quickly as well when the beam is not connected to an enemy. The Photon Projector's ammo capacity is 100 for both firing modes. When using the primary fire mode, it will fire at a rate of 8 rounds per second, so your ammo count will decrease by 8 every second, basically. Now here's where it gets a little tricky, so pay attention. When you first connect the beam, you'll be doing 3 damage per round. The longer you keep the beam connected, the stronger it's going to get, and it will go from 3 damage per round up to 7 per round, and finally at max power it will be doing 15 damage per round. That might not sound like a whole lot, but when you think about it, 15 damage per round at 8 rounds per second, that is 120 damage per second at its max power. I told you it was confusing. Even at minimum power, it's still doing 24 damage per second, which is not too shabby, especially against someone like Tracer, who doesn't have a whole lot of health, of base health, I guess, to begin with. One more great feature of this weapon's primary firing mode is it will maintain its damage boost for a short period of time after it's disconnected or you get a kill on an enemy. So if you're able to jump the beam from one enemy to another immediately after it disconnects, you can maintain that damage boost, making this weapon extremely effective when there are multiple enemies around in close quarters. Are you guys following me so far? Okay, good. If not, rewind the video, listen to it again. I did explain it right, I swear. Let's move on to the Photon Projector's secondary fire mode though, which is kind of like a charge shot that fires a large but extremely slow moving ball of energy. So by holding down the Alt Fire button, you can charge up a massive ball of energy that Symmetra then fires at enemies, I guess, and deals huge damage to multiple enemies at a time. But it literally moves at a snail's pace. Like I said though, at full charge, this huge ball of energy does massive damage, 125 damage to be exact, and it can also damage multiple enemies at once, and it's also able to pass through barriers like Winston's mobile barrier, which is very, very handy. It has the same ammo count of 100, but a fully charged shot will use 20 of that 100 ammo count in a single shot. The amount of damage that that shot does and the amount of ammo it uses will depend on how much you charge the shot, but at its lowest charge it will do 25 damage, and at its maximum charge it will do 125 damage. It's a kind of a confusing weapon, but you can sort of see how it can be one of the most hard-hitting weapons in the game with the possible damage values of those firing modes. And finally, as a last note on the photon projector, the reload time is a static 1 second, so reloading is really not an issue. It's pretty quick, no matter what. Moving on to Symmetra's abilities now, let's talk first about her Photon Shield, as it won't take long to get through. Symmetra can apply a shield to teammates, giving them an additional 25 health. The shield stays on that teammate, whether until they either die or if you switch to a different hero. The shield can be healed by another support character, and it also regenerates like a normal shield would. The cooldown timer on this is only 1 second, so use this ability as much as possible, and in fact a good strategy to employ is to try to make sure all your teammates have a shield on them at all times. Her second ability is the Sentry Turrets, of which Symmetra can place up to 6 at a time on the battlefield. Once you place that 7th turret, of course it'll destroy the oldest turret on the map, and so on and so forth. The more turrets you add to the map, the older ones get destroyed. Symmetra gains a charge, or an additional turret, that she can deploy every 10 seconds, and she can have up to 3 turrets in the bank, so to speak, at one time. They are incredibly fragile, as they only have 1 health and are easily taken out by anything that hits them, so placing them in groups and in tricky or somewhat hidden places is the key to using these things effectively. 1 turret is capable of doing 25 damage per second, so the best way to use these is to put at least 3 of them together in one spot. 3 turrets times 25 damage per second means 75 damage per second is done by a group of 3 turrets. And as a bonus effect, the turret fire will also slow an enemy's movement a little bit, making them great for cutting off like flank routes or alternate routes to the objective. Like I said though, they're easily destroyed, so you hopefully want to stay sorta close to them so you can either defend them or swoop in for an easy kill after they've damaged an enemy. Finally, we come to Symmetra's ultimate, which is pretty straightforward. It's a teleporter. Simple as it is though, it can be an amazing help to your team and maybe even win games for you, as it allows your teammates to get back into the battle very, very quickly after dying. Place the teleporter in a spot that is close enough to the action that your teammates can get back in there quickly, but also try to put it in a spot that's, a little bit less conspicuous so that it doesn't get destroyed by a sneaky Tracer or Genji. You can also protect your teleporter with a group of turrets watching over it, and the teleporter has 200 health, so hopefully any potential threats will be taken care of before they destroy the teleporter if you've got turrets watching over it. Finally, the teleporter can be used only 6 times. After that, it is destroyed automatically. Alright, so let's get into some general strategies for Symmetra. She is more suited on a defensive side, but her teleporter ability can be a pretty big advantage to an attacking team. Maybe enough to warrant bringing her along as well on an attacking side. But Symmetra isn't really a support character like they say she is, or in the traditional sense, I guess. So if your team doesn't have an actual healer yet, you might want to pick one of them over Symmetra in basically any scenario. At the beginning of each game, you should try to rush up to the attacking team's spawn and place as many turrets down as possible before the round begins. Usually you can get at least 3 down somewhere, but I found I can usually at least get 4 without a Lucio. But if your team has a Lucio, he can give you that speed boost, and you can sometimes get all 6 turrets placed before the round begins. This is the ideal situation really, but basically get as many turrets placed as you can before the round begins. And not just anywhere either. Focus on cutting off flank routes and alternate paths to the objective, or just protecting your back When a turret is attacking an enemy or it gets destroyed, you'll get a warning on your HUD, which is a really good way to tell if an enemy is coming up one of those routes. And use your headsets, guys. Talk to your teammates, communicate the info, let them know someone's coming so they can help you out. I definitely don't hear enough communication going on in quick play, at least at the moment. Also, once the round actually begins, you'll want to play a little bit more passively at the start and try to stay alive until you can get a teleporter down. So when the round starts, try to stay behind teammates and or cover. Use her alternate fire to send those huge balls of devastation at a choke point. I basically don't even look to see if anyone's there. I'll just charge up a shot, pop out of cover, and send it out at a choke point, because really, you can't exactly aim these things precisely. They travel at such a slow speed that enemies can easily dodge them, but if you just keep spamming them at a choke point, half of the time your enemies will unsuspectingly walk right into one as they round a corner or something, and a fully charged shot does a lot of damage. So basically, just keep spamming until you get your ultimate charged. I would also recommend protecting yourself with a few turrets as well if you can at the beginning. You really want to be able to get that teleporter down as soon as possible. That is your main goal at the beginning of the game, is to get your ultimate charged as quickly as possible and get that teleporter down. Now, we already talked a bit about the turret placement, but real quick, places that work really well are things like behind awnings or just above a door inside a room, even in like bushes or places that just seem weird. The more strangely placed they are, the more your enemy will be confused by where the damage is coming from, and hopefully it'll be long enough for the turrets to either take them out or for you to swoop in and get an easy kill. Now, the only other real tip I have for Symmetra is when you get in close with an enemy, try to move erratically while you have your beam tethered to them. Jump around like a crazy person, move side to side. Basically, just do whatever you can to mess up your enemy's aim and keep your beam tethered to them for longer. Symmetra can be pretty deadly in close quarters combat, especially if she manages to have her beam go from one enemy to another in a short amount of time, as she'll maintain that beam's damage boost. If you can safely tether it to a Roadhog or Reinhardt, do it. You will get to max damage boost status in no time at all, and since they're so big, it's easy to keep them in your field of view to achieve that max damage as well. In fact, I would say that Symmetra is a pretty strong counter to both Roadhog and Reinhardt due to her weapon, and also because she's pretty nimble and hard to hit for those bigger, slower heroes as well. Finally, let's talk about some characters that are pretty strong counters to Symmetra. Anybody who moves fast is obviously going to give Symmetra some trouble, so Tracer is definitely a hard counter. She's tough to keep in your field of view when she blinks, and she can easily dodge Symmetra's charged shots as well. Pharah is also very tough to hit for Symmetra, as her beam has a limited distance on it. If Pharah's up in the air like she usually is, you won't be able to reach her with your beam at all. Reaper is also a pretty good counter, as he can wraith or teleport past your sentry turrets. Also, he is devastating in close quarters and will most likely take you down with those shotguns faster than you can get your beam to reach max damage. It's kind of a long list actually, counters to Symmetra, because basically any heroes with good AoE ability can easily take out groups of Symmetra's turrets, making them pretty good counters. So Pharah, Junkrat, and even Winston can get rid of those turret nests really easily. However, I give the advantage to Symmetra against players like Roadhog, Reinhardt, and even D.Va for reasons previously mentioned, also because just they're really big targets for your charge shots when you're spamming them at a choke point, and it's often these bigger characters that I get kills on doing this. Also, even though Genji is kinda tough to keep in your field of view like Tracer, I find Symmetra can easily take out a Genji in close quarters because her tether beam completely ignores Genji's reflect ability. And another technique you can employ when facing these faster but more fragile enemies is if you see them coming at you, back around a corner and charge up your alt fire shot. Hopefully you'll be able to sort of lure them around the corner right into your charged blast, and then follow that up with the Photon Projector's primary fire, and you should be able to net yourself an easy kill. But there you have it, guys. That's about all I've got on Symmetra. If you ask me, she should have been in the defensive category rather than the support, but I guess she does provide some level of support with those shields. Get your turrets up as soon as you can, spam that charge shot, and when you're in tight, tether that beam and jump around like a crazy person. Hope you enjoyed the guide, guys, and I hope it was helpful. If I missed anything, definitely don't hesitate to mention it in the comments of the video. Let's help each other out, guys. As always, if you're new around here, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button, guy, and of course, if you have any suggestions on who I should do a guide on in the future, then go ahead and leave a comment. I will certainly do my best to get it done. That being said, I've already picked our next hero, and it's gonna be Zarya, so get pumped for that one, cause she is a beast. But still, leave your suggestions and I'll get to them for sure. That's it for me though, guys. My name's Grizz. Hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll see you all in the near future. Peace.